Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Reel, and I'm the program director for the Bioethics program at the Dalalana School of Public Health. Welcome. I'm just going to go through some of the basic information that you might find useful regarding the program. And just an FYI, they've asked us if we can record these presentations so they can be posted to the website for those people who couldn't make it today. So your contributions may be part of the recording, just to let you know that. First of all, I'll say welcome to everybody and see if I can, there we go. The MHSC program has a number of goals, primarily and not surprisingly, to try to develop your core knowledge in bioethics and some of the skills that might be required for engaging in bioethics education and research. The idea behind the program is to strengthen the capacity in practical settings, in applied settings, where people are doing health-related work. That includes healthcare provision, health research, and health policy work as well. The idea overall is to be able to skill up individuals so that they can enter the real world and deal with real world ethical challenges that relate to healthcare practice and health research. The program structure is that of a course-based program. So this master's is what's commonly called a professional master's. It's not a research master's. There's no thesis requirement in this program. It was designed for people who were practicing healthcare professionals who were working full-time but had experienced many of the kind of ethical dimensions and dilemmas in their work that left them wanting to understand these things more clearly. So this course was designed to enable them to continue working full-time while taking a master's degree over 2 years. If you are more inclined to be looking for a research degree, one that is a master's or a PhD program that has a significant research component, you'd be wise to look into what's called the collaborative specialization in bioethics. The Dalalana School has a number of collaborative specialization programs. In those programs, you actually enroll in another home unit within their own master's or doctoral level programs, but within that program, you become part of this collaborative specialization in bioethics, and you then focus your studies wherever possible on issues to do with bioethics that are of interest to you. So that's another possibility. It's arguably the better possibility if you are looking to continue studying at the PhD level after you do a master's program. It's also the kind of program that would lend better to working in a situation that's more academic, or one that is involving more of a strong research role. That information about that program is also available on the JCB website under our educational offerings. This program, the MHSC program, is modular in format, which means that there are full 2-day blocks every 2 weeks, 24 times a year over 2 years. So it's 24 times over 2 years. So you have classes all day Thursday, all day Friday, every other week for the entire academic year. It also runs through the summer between the 2 years, which typically allows for the practicum component to be completed then. It's largely focused on ensuring a lot of interprofessional exchange. So we have, usually in the class, there are a chunk of people who work as physicians, and then a number of others who are nurses, occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, research coordinators, social workers, and everybody else that gets involved in healthcare and health delivery. Recently, we've been accepting more students who apply directly from an undergraduate program and who don't have that kind of classic background of the practicing healthcare professional. So don't be put off by the information on our website that describes the classic applicant. We've been accepting people who have a strong application directly from undergraduate degree, and find that that's been quite successful as of late. We do always prefer if anybody has practical experience, which can be personal experience, volunteer experience, or work experience that has seen them engaging with the issues around bioethics in practice in the real world, because that's part of what informs the very rich classroom discussions that really help us tease out the many dimensions to the issues that are at play in bioethics. So as I mentioned, I'm the program director. So I work 1 day a week in this role. Otherwise, I'm working as a practicing healthcare ethicist with Sunnybrook Hospital and Markham Stouffville Hospital. Our program assistant, who is full-time and is readily available by email, is Ter Yoon, whose email address is there. He's also very readily available from our website as well. The courses that one encounters in this program in first year range from an introduction to the sort of philosophical theory in bioethics, which is a philosophy course, also offered through the philosophy department here at U of T. And then there's a core topics in bioethics, which is one that is the very applied issues in bioethics that are the issues that come up in the practice of healthcare regularly. Empirical approaches in bioethics looks at the kind of research methods and strategies that work best when trying to do some empirical work in the field of bioethics. And then legal approaches considers the way that legal reasoning works and how legal reasoning and legal theory can impact the way that people undertake bioethics practice, but also how we interpret those legal scenarios in the context of healthcare. Resource allocation looks exactly at that. It looks at the issues that are involved in trying to allocate scarce resources and who decides when and how. And then in first year, you're introduced to a practicum module, or course rather, which typically students complete in the summer months between years, but it can also be completed at any point in the 2-year program. The practicum involves 48 hours of applied learning, often in a context where there is an ethicist who's working, with whom you work, and whose work you follow for the 48 hours. That practicum also typically involves a project of some sort that serves both the interests of the students and hopefully the needs of the institution where the student is undertaking the practicum. That is a very flexible course, which is scheduled outside of all the class time and in accordance with what's possible with you as the student and the supervisor with whom you're working and the context in which you'll be doing it. The 2 course directors for that course help guide all students through identifying and selecting practicum options. And then in second year, there's one course that looks at the challenges in teaching bioethics and things like the hidden curriculum and developing curriculum content that's appropriate to a particular work context. Ethics in health institutions looks at things like policies and the limitations of healthcare law and how institutions have to work with and around those things. It also looks at the sort of governmental organization of health delivery in particular jurisdictions, focusing, of course, on Ontario. Research ethics looks at the issues to do with what's typically considered research ethics board work, where we review the kind of proposals that come through for research studies that have various ethical components, because you're typically asking participants to do something that is above and beyond the treatment that they've come seeking. Writing bioethics is one half course that focuses on how to draft abstracts for conferences, and also how to write manuscripts for submission to bioethics specific places. And then practical bioethics is the final capstone project, which is largely a student-led project, which is a chance to bring together the sorts of topics that you have found most interesting in the 2 years and do a more in-depth chunk of work on that, again, in conjunction with a supervisor and typically a capstone context where your project is something that serves that capstone and its needs, I mean, that institution and its needs as well as your own for getting some additional practical experience. The learning outcomes after the 2 years, we hope that you'll have a grounding in the core aspects of bioethics that are the philosophical, legal, and cultural ones, that you'll be exposed to the clinical and organizational and the research ethics issues that arise in healthcare systems and how those affect a wide range of stakeholders. On the whole, we hope that you'll be generally far more aware of ethics and the way that it manifests in the world, and that you'll be familiar with decision-making tools that exist and also be able to apply some problem-solving abilities. Typically, we look at these as all being focused on the kind of workplace that you may be in already or the kind of workplace that you're looking to be in the future. We have historically, as I mentioned, had students who are healthcare professionals, so they typically bring this back to the workplace where they are presently working. More recently, where students have come in from an undergraduate level directly, and they aren't necessarily mid-career, as many of our other students are, these apply to the kind of places that you might hope to be working in the future when you've finished this master's degree. And ultimately, that you simply have a good chunk of practical knowledge about bioethics research, education, and deliberation. And you can apply that quite effectively when you have done the master's. Our minimum admission requirements, it's normally a bachelor's degree, and then very often it's a recognized degree in one of the health sciences, as I mentioned. That's been our classic conventional student, but recently we've been accepting a bachelor's or sometimes another graduate degree that is demonstrably relevant to offer a basis for coming into the Masters in Bioethics program. So those we typically consider, all the applications we consider on an individual basis, and it revolves around both your grades and the references and your writing capacity. So we do, as most programs do, favor individuals who've got particularly strong academic credentials and evidence of your own scholarly abilities and a degree of personal maturity. We also look for applicants who have some significant potential to be leaders in some way, shape, or form in bioethics, whether that be in their own institution, their community, or something broader than that, whether it's in a health policy, government, or other kind of context. The process involves the online application from the School of Graduate Studies, which you fill in the form and also include your current CV. We need a copy of your university academic transcripts, your letter of intent, which describes your professional goals, 3 other letters of recommendation from 3 different referees. And then where you're employed in a substantive post, we require a letter of release from your employer, because you will be required to spend 2 full days every 2 weeks in the classroom. Currently, of course, it's being conducted remotely, so people are online, but fingers crossed, by September next year, we'll be able to be back in the classroom again. And if not, sometime during the academic year 2021-22, we would hope to be back in the classroom. So we do require agreement from employers to say that you will be released for the studies, because typically the attendance in the classroom is considered quite a significant component of your participation in the course. We also require a sample of your recent writing so that we can gauge how well you seem to be able to grasp and grapple with ideas and analyze those ideas and articulate them. In some cases, we do also require that there's an interview with some applicants so that we can get a better sense of the person if we haven't got that immediately from the documents associated with the application. So the application deadline for next fall's entry is January 18th of 2021. And then for any international students, there's a process by which we assess equivalency with the University of Toronto degree. So you can check this on the School of Graduate Studies website. And there's also English language proficiency requirements for international students as well. If anybody is interested, there are some further information sessions this fall, one next week. These are, again, information sessions about this MHSC and bioethics in particular. The content of those sessions is largely the same as this session. So you may want to join just for reiterating what you've heard already, and you may want to join in case somebody else happens to ask a question that's very useful. So there's one next week in October and one in early December as well. Those web links are available on the website of the School of Public Health as well. So I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have. Feel free to unmute and speak it, or put it in the chat box. Okay, I'll leave it at that if nobody's got any questions. And we'll end the meeting there. Thanks very much for joining.